Hi, this is Mahesh Ravi. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create a 70s motion graphic video. We are going to use a tool called Cavalry, which is a motion tool, a vector-based motion tool. And this is free, and they also have a professional version which offers a couple of really interesting features. But for this tutorial, you just need Cavalry, the basic edition, the basic version. So we are also going to use Final Cut Pro to do a little bit of editing, adding music and stuff like that. You can actually use any video editor to do the same. So let's get started with Cavalry. So once you open Cavalry, this is how the interface looks like. So even though it is a motion tool, this doesn't work like something that you're already familiar with, for instance, After Effects. It has a completely different logic behind this. And the entire workflow happens based on connections, how you're going to connect one parameter to another parameter. And that's one really interesting feature of Cavalry, that you can actually take any parameter here and then connect it to another parameter. Like, for instance, you can connect the scale of an object to the rotation of an object. So let's get started and try to build the whole animation for the shot. So what we're going to do is we are going to change the composition setting first. So we're going to go to composition here and click on composition settings, and you can see the default composition settings here. I'm going to change this width to 1080. I need a square composition here, and you can immediately see that that changed in here. So for the time being, we are going to change only that. If you need motion blur in your shot, you can just check that, and it will enable motion blur in the animations that you're actually doing. So I'm just going to check that on. I need motion blur here. So close this. And this is your timeline. This is where you will be adding all the elements, and this is the timeline. This is where you will preview it. And any element that you have on your scene, the attributes, the options for this will show up here. You will understand this really quickly right now. So we will start with adding an object. So I'll show you how this works. So you can see there is a toolbar here. So if you hold Option on your keyboard or Alt on your keyboard and click on a tool, the shape will immediately load into the center of the composition right here. Like, you can see that the ellipse is here in the center of the composition. This looks pretty much like After Effects. You can see the layer name, you can see the timeline and all that stuff. So since this is selected, you can see the attributes of this particular component. So you can see position, rotation, opacity, blend mode, everything is right here. So if I want to quickly assign a color to this component, I can just click on the swatches here and then select a color. Write it from here, and it will choose that color. You can go through some of the colors which are preset in this, and you can choose any color palette that you want, and you can select that, and the color will be right there. This is how it works. And as I told you, all the parameters here can be connected to each other. So for instance, let me show you a quick example before we start working on the actual project. So if, for instance, this is the position parameter, so you can see that, okay, if I move the X, this is going to happen. Now I can take this position parameter and connect it to the, let's say, the rotation of this. So what is going to happen now is, let's not connect it to the rotation, because this is an ellipse and it will be very hard for you to see the rotation of an ellipse. So we'll take the position and connect it to the X scale of this object. So we have the position which is connected to the scale. It's linked right now. So when you're moving the position, the scale is also changing with that. You can see that here. We will actually know more about this when you're working on our tutorial itself. So let me delete this, and we'll start with an empty project, right? So we are starting empty right now. Let's create something. Now, rather than this, like, see, you can see this toolbar and you can see a lot of options in here. You don't have to always create objects from this toolbar. You can click on this button right here and you can add anything that you want into your composition by searching on this command center. So for instance, if you want to add a background shape, I can just search background shape and double click on that to load that into my scene. right? So you can quickly do this by clicking on this button, searching for whatever you want. So we have the background shape right here. Let's choose a color. You can go to the fill and you can choose the color manually here, but we don't want to do that. We'll just quickly select a background from here. So I'm going to just click and select a background right here. So we have this background from this palette. So that's working. Now let's add another object, right? So to add an object from here, you can hold Alt on your keyboard and click on it, and that shape basically will come here. So we have the shape loaded in our scene. You can go to the scale and you can lock the scale so that the X and Y is locked together, and you can scale it up. So this is what is going to happen to it. You can change the color by quickly selecting a value. So if I click on a value here, that color is going to be loaded into this. So let's choose this color right now. You can go down and you can see, do you want to enable motion blur for this element? You can see that parameter here. You can say that, okay, just select full motion blur on this object. Now we're going to modify the shape a little bit. So if you go down, you can see that the shape type is star and the radius is this. And you can increase the size. So if I just increase the size, this is going to, the spikes are going to get more. We can also use the inner radius of this and then change the inner radius a little bit to create the kind of shape that we want. So this is a shape that we will go with. So you can see that in here, in the attribute editor also, it's sort of like stacked on top of each other. We can see the background shape properties here, and on top of that, we have the star shape as well. So now for the star shape, I will show you how this connections are going to work. So I want to connect this star shape's position to the rotation. That's what I want to do. And to do this, I'm going to take the position parameter. And before doing that, let's move it all the way to this side. All right, it's going to start from here. And the position is basically connected to the rotation of it. Right, so that's something that we established already. Now what happens is that if I change the position, you can see that it is changing the position and it's also doing the rotation right now. That's the beauty of Cavalry. So that linking is quickly made there. Now what we are going to do is we are going to sort of animate this. So what we'll do is we will click on the star shape and we will say that we want to create a keyframe for the position. So we'll click a keyframe here. And we'll just take the keyframe to maybe 30 right here. And we will create another keyframe right here, and we'll just move the rotation, the position back to the center. Something like this is fine. So we're moving that to the center. You can see a slight bit of halo which is happening. That's because we have enabled motion blur in this. So now if you play it back, this is going to happen, right? So I just want to show you what is happening here. So this is doing the animation, the keyframes that we have set, just like After Effects, it's happening, but the motion blur is actually too much, right? So we don't want the motion blur to affect the whole object. It will only affect in the transformation. So this is what is happening right now. But the motion blur is really high at this point. So we're going to go to the settings of motion blur and we can reduce the strength of this. So if we bring it down, you can see that we are sort of affecting the strength of the motion blur. So you can keep it somewhere here. I guess that's going to be good enough. And you can see that, okay, it's very minimal right now. Okay, so we created the first animation in Cavalry. So we can just see this, how it is happening. And you can click the keyframes, try to move it to adjust the speed and all that stuff. This is how it happens, right? So once we have done this, what we are going to do here is, if you select this both keyframes, and if you go to the graph editor, right here next to the time editor, you can see the graph. It's a very linear animation which is happening right now. So I'm going to select these two keys, and if I select the two keys in here, right click on this and go to magic easing, you can choose the kind of easing that you want, and this is again pretty easy. So I want to do an anticipate in and an overshoot out. So before doing the animation, it's going to create an anticipation and then it's going to move out. So I'm going to choose this, and let's play back how this animation is right now. So hit spacebar and you can see that it's doing the anticipation animation first. So it just goes back a little bit and then runs away, right? So that's how you can actually create that anticipation effects in Cavalry. So we have done that. Now let's add one more element into this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the text if in the toolbar, click on Alt and hold and create a text, and you can move it and place it where you want it. Now all the options of the text is going to be here, just like this. So you can again lock it and then scale it up if you want. You can change the type right here. So if I come down to the string, you can change this to whatever you want to say. So I want to type muse here, and to change the typeface here, you can choose the typefaces that you have already installed in your system. So let's choose something which looks a little retro. So I'm going to just go all the way up and then look for something thick and heavy. Okay, I think this is pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. And you can change the font. If you have some fonts in here, you can change it. Right now it has only one font variant, so we are not going to change it. You can change the character spacing and all that in here and down in this window. So all the basic text adjustments are actually here. Now what we are going to do is we are going to assign it at color. So I'm going to just assign it the same color as the star, and I want to drag and drop it under the star shape. Okay. So it is visible at that point. Now, the next animation that I've done here, and that's also going to introduce you to a really interesting tool in Cavalry. So what I've done here is, once this is going away, and I split this into two. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just duplicate the muse type layer. So Control D to duplicate this. So I have two text layers right now, and you can drag it from the beginning or from the end of the clip to adjust the duration of this. So I'm just going to bring it somewhere here, the second layer of text that I have, and I'm going to take the first type layer. I'm just going to bring it and end it right there. So these are two layers of the muse that I have, the text that I have. So for the text second one, what I want to do is I want to create a duplicator effect, right? I need multiple copies of this text. And there is a quick way to actually do that. All you have to do is select the layer that you want. And then if you go all the way up, you can see here, there is a duplicator creator right here, this icon. If you click on this, you can immediately see that it created duplicates of it, and super simple to work with. So now if you play back, you can see that it's actually coming from the beginning, because even though the muse text is actually starting from here, the duplicator is starting from the beginning of it. So all you have to do is just drag and drop this to align with the muse. So again, now if you play back, the anticipation of the star, the text, and the the duplicator is going to do its animation. So this is what we have currently, right? So from this point, we are going to make some changes. So let's say once we have this, what I want to do is, if you select the duplicator, you can see the duplicator options. So I'm going to create a keyframe on the size of this duplicator. So let's create a key next to this width of this duplicator. I'm going to create a key right there. You can see that there is a key that we created. And then from this point to this point, I'm just going to increase the width of this to this. So it just does this animation. So playback, you can see that it does this. We need it to be a little faster. So just this, and then this does this. We have done that. Let's create more animations in this deformers, in this duplicator itself. We are going to go to the rotation. So click on the rotation here, creates a keyframe there. Just move a little up and then rotate it, perhaps like this, right? So we have the rotation here, like this, and do this, and then this. Okay. So what I want to do here is that I want to create another keyframe for the height of this. I'm going to click the height of this here, and then move a little bit, and then I want this to be splitting like this. So there are three things which are happening. It just gets wider, it rotates, and then it gets splits in, like that. So this is what we are doing. Now the animation is again very linear. Whatever is happening here is very linear. So it's very, very easy to change that. You can again select these keyframes, right click on it, go to magic easing, and choose something that you want. So I want a small spring and spring out for this. I'll do the same for everything here. So magic using small spring out, and then here also. Now if you do this, it's going to be like this. It's doing a very quick dynamic motion here. So it works like that. Right? So we have this. We can now get rid of this element. So maybe from this point, what we'll do is we'll create a keyframe on the Y position here, and then sort of move that out of the frame like this. So it does all of that and then moves out of the frame. So we have a clear frame like this. So this is the starting point of the animation that I've done. Now, one other thing that I want to show here is that let's add one more shape into this mix. So let's go and add one more star here. So click Alt and then add a star. Let's add a different color to this. Say this color. Okay. So we have a star shape right here. Or I think we added a super ellipse or something. Okay, that's fine. This is fine. So we have a shape right here. And we will sort of begin this at this point. So everything is going and then this shape sort of appears like that. So it comes in like this. And let's create a duplicate of this again. And we will do this, repeat the same thing. I'm just going to trim the first one. And then the second ellipse starts from after that, right? So it's just like, layer arrangements, timing, and all those things. But what we're going to do here is when I select the duplicator for this, again, going to bring it to the second one. So you can see that it created this quickly. It basically created that for this super ellipse shape. It looks good. Now, when I go to the duplicator here, and if I do a rotation here, what is going to happen is that that entire set is going to behave like that. But if you don't want that and you want the individual elements to move, you can still do that. If you go down, and you can see something called shape rotation here. Now, if you do this, it's going to animate the shapes separately. So we are going to do that here. So I'm just going to go to the duplicate at the beginning and click a key right there. And then we will do a shape rotation like this. Let's do that. So now if you play it back, it's going to do this. We can again select this and then right click magic using, and then we will sort of say that very slow, maybe very slow out. So if you do that, it's going to start faster and then slow out like this. Right? So we have the animation somewhat like this. I guess that's enough for this lesson. So what we're going to do is we are going to trim our workspace. So this is the render area that we want to be rendered out. So you play back, you can see the whole thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export this whole thing. Now to export a file, you can actually go to File and click on Render Manager. You can see this. Just add the current composition and it will be added. Where do you want to render this? You can set up a path or you can quickly choose a folder that you want. And once it's all done, right, you can click render all and it will start rendering. Close this. We can quit Cavalry right now. And you can see that your composition is right here. So everything is ready. I mean, we have our major content, but we need to make it a little more realistic or authentic to make it look like it's actually from the 70s. So to do this, I have a couple of resource files that I will introduce you to. So let's get started with the video editor. So I'm going to use Final Cut Pro. This can be done in any video editor that you want. I would recommend if you want to go for a free one, I would recommend VN Editor. Let's go to Final Cut Pro here. And you can see the previous composition that I have done here, and there are certain effects that I've added on top of this. And we're going to talk about that first. So let's create a new project. And we need a square project because we created a square composition in here. Let's add our file. Just drag and drop it to the timeline, and I have the file right here. I'm just going to bring down the view so that I can see the whole screen. If you play back, you can see the whole animation which is happening here. Now what I'm going to do is, the first thing, that I usually do if I want to recreate this is to add some overlays on top of this. So one of the most interesting things that I found was what happened in the 70s is the evolution or invention of VHS tapes. So I have an interesting overlay of a VHS tape here. So I'm going to use that. I'll show you how this basically looks like, the VHS overlay. So it is just black and with these fungus play which is happening here. So it's a really interesting effect. So I'm going to take a portion of that and I'm going to use that. I'm going to delete the rest of it. I'm going to take it and put it on top of our footage here. So it's not matching because the size is slightly low. So what I'm going to take is I will just scale it so that it fits our composition. But when we play it, you are not going to see what is behind it because we haven't applied a layer overlay, a layer blending mode yet. So in Final Cut Pro, you can just take the blending mode right from here and then change it to what you want. So I'm going to just, I think the screen overlay is going to work really well. So you can already see it starts to look like a 70s television commercial or something like that. So this is a very easy thing to do and it creates a lot of authenticity to your video. Yeah, so that actually works. Now, one other thing that you can do, this is something that you can do in Cavalry as well, but I usually, don't prefer doing that because it's going to take a lot of time to render those stuff, but you can do this easily in Final Cut Pro, where it's very similar to the wiggle effect that you have in After Effects. So if I select the footage here, and if I go for a filter called Earthquake, I can just add that in here. If I reduce the intensity of this to maybe 3, I can get this sort of a movement happening on the text, which reminds you of this real physical camera recording of graphics which used to happen at that time. So it reminds you of it gives you that look. So that's a very subtle thing, but it adds a lot of value to your design, right? So it's going to go back to 50% of view, and then you can see that effect playing. Now the whole thing will work really well if you have some interesting transitions happening as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to a part where this text is transitioning to this one. So I'm going to find that exact frame where the transition is happening. So this is where this transition is going to happen. I'm just going to cut that into 2 pieces. So this is where that single text becomes this multiple thing. So what I want to do here is I want to add sort of a glitch that happens. So I'm going to click. I'll take a small piece of footage from that. And I want to add a glitchy effect in here. This is very simple in FCP stuff as well. I'm going to go with a bat TV effect. This is really cool. So I'm going to just take that effect and put it here. And you can see the amount of bat television that you need in here. TV static, and there is a role that you can just give. Now if I play back, it's going to create an interesting television like glitch in there. All these subtle things will add a lot of quality to your video. You can and this is the workflow is very similar in pretty much every NLE editor that you are going to do. These effects might have different titles, but you can just easily figure it out. So once you have done all of this, another thing that you need to add and you cannot forget is the sound that actually is something that actually sells the whole game, right? So I have a very interesting sound file that I have downloaded. This is something from a 70s feature presentation filler that used to be shown in this grindhouse theaters and all that. So I have that, and I'm going to take that sound and I'm going to put it right here. Let's extend it, and now let's play it. We have it. So this is the final file that we have created here. Once you're ready, you can export that in here. So I hope this tutorial was useful for you. Check out Cavalry and let me know your thoughts. Thank you. I'll see you with another video soon. Till then, bye.